Hey, Dr. Jon Finn here. Welcome to the Habit Mechanic podcast. Right now, you can get my new best-selling book, Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution, at tougherminds.co.uk. The digital book, audiobook, and physical book are all available at a special price that you won't find anywhere else.
Welcome to the Habit Mechanic podcast. To help you finish this year strongly and get ready for a successful 2024, we're re-releasing every podcast we've recorded so far that takes a deep dive into the Habit Mechanic book. The episode's coming up in a few moments. Remember, if you want to get your business off to a great start in January, get in touch to discuss how our Habit Mechanic keynotes or workshops can equip your people with practical skills that help them build super habits in 5 minutes. Or if you want to earn £100,000 per year working part-time by launching your own coaching business, we guarantee to help you do that in just 13 hours. Get in touch with us today to learn more about becoming a certified habit mechanic coach who can transform people's lives and is recognized as a world leader in the field. For more details, contact us via the website. The link is in the podcast notes. Or, if you want to feel better and do better every day, download the Habit Mechanic University app from your app store. Enjoy the episode.
We're going to talk about the science of building habits today. We're going to actually dive into some of the main insights from chapter 18, because this stuff's not going away, and they are the key drivers of what allow us to build both helpful habits and unhelpful habits. So that's what we're going to talk through. So if you have any questions about anything that we're talking about, ask us about that as well, and we'll come back to you. I'm joined today as ever by my friend and colleague Andrew Whitelam. Andrew, how are you doing?
Yeah, hi there, John. Yeah, really excited about this session because chapter 18 is titled The Secret 9 Factors That Really Control Your Life. Chapter 18 of the Habit Mechanic, really substantial chapter for me when I read it, and really looking forward to taking a deep dive with you into it and getting your additional insight into the chapter, which will be really fascinating and engaging. And the chapter starts, John, with a fascinating story about a former US president. Please tell us more.
Yeah, so this is Barack Obama. It's a video clip. It's a bit of a press conference at the White House, and I think he was they just introduced some new smoking regulations. So some of the journalists were testing him because he's a smoker, and obviously if he's smoking and then telling others that they shouldn't, that was jarring some of the journalists. So I'm just looking at the chapter 18 now. He was asked by a reporter, how many cigarettes do you smoke per day? Do you smoke in the presence of others? And he was talking about that he'd admitted that stopping smoking was a struggle. And he said, I've fallen off the wagon a few times, and occasionally, yes, I do smoke in front of others. But he said, I'd say I'm 95% cured, but there are times when I mess up, like folks who go to AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. Smoking is something you continually struggle with. So I think that's a great example of, I think Barack Obama, someone who we see as this fantastic role model, that actually he also struggles with certain addictive behaviors. And when I say an addictive behavior, I just use that language to explain anything that we think and do that we know is not helpful for us, but we can't stop ourselves doing it.
Yeah, and as you say in the chapter, John, it is a challenge. And what does Barack Obama's story then, if you like, point us towards? What is the in simple terms, what do we have to understand in broad terms to start to build helpful habits and change our behavior towards the direction we want it to?
Yeah, what it shows us, unfortunately, is that traditional self-help training coaching doesn't work because it's based on two default but faulty ideas. One is, if we can give people more knowledge about what they need to do to change their behavior, they'll be able to do it. And then secondly, and typically we call that tips and tricks, or coaches call it, we'll give you some tips and tricks. And then secondly, it overestimates the power of verbal persuasion. So Barack Obama knows what he needs to do to stop smoking. He knows don't buy the cigarettes in the first place, etc. He'll have loads of little tips and tricks. And I'm sure he's verbally persuaded himself many times that it's a good idea to quit and he should quit. But he doesn't, because we don't do what we know we should do. We do what we're in the habit of doing. So traditional self-help training coaching goes in one ear and out the other. What we need to do at a high level if we want to change our behavior is 3 simple steps, which all the habit mechanic process is built around. And we call it the habit mechanic system. Step 1 is we need to prime the brain for change. So we need to get that brain working well so that it's able to change. Then we need to lay down some new neurobiological connections. We might do that by building a habit building plan, the bones of which we're going to talk about later. And then number 3, we need to strengthen those connections so that the cobweb-like connections that we talk about in the brain become cable-like connections, and that's how we start to build automatic new behaviors, in other words, habits.
Yeah, and of course, as you say, Jon, this chapter has the full journey that you take people on, explained in great detail, and we're going to dive deep into those insights now. In the chapter, we'll come back to this at the end of the session, but you state verbal persuasion. You can't talk yourself out of things. Doesn't work. Verbal persuasion doesn't work, and willpower is a conduit for changing and building new helpful habits and destroying destructive habits, but it's a limited resource. So you have instead, Jon, developed the 9 action factors framework, what you call the 9 action factors framework. And in the book, you say it can help people create personal change and groups of people change a culture. Just explain that for us in detail, if you would, and then we'd love to talk about the 9 action factors in greater detail.
Yeah, so if we want to be at our best, we need to use, I'd say, 3 bodies of scientific insight. One is neuroscience. That's how the brain works. What are the operating rules for the brain? The second is behavioral science. Why does the brain change? What factors drive the brain to change? And then thirdly is what I call applied psychology. So what tools can we give people to help them to practice doing things differently? But the 9 action factors is our behavioral science model. People increasingly hear that term. I don't know of any other system that is purporting to help people to change that actually has a robust behavioral science model like ours does. We hear the term behavioral science quite a lot. The government has a nudge unit. So nudging is a way of reminding people what to do. But when we've gone to the literature, and all of our team have very strong academic backgrounds, most of them have done academic research, including myself, have done a PhD in these fields. No academic behavioral science model, including nudge, explains everything about why humans do what they do. You know, cigarette packets have big nudges on the front of them showing what your lungs look like after you've been smoking. People still smoke. So what we've done is we've gone to the research and we've taken what we think are the 9 best behavioral science models driven by research institutes in the universities and professors who've created these theories, but none of those theories by themselves explain everything about why humans do what they do. So we've glued, if you like, 9 of them together and then sort of tune them up, and we've put them together as the 9 action factor model. So this is our proprietary behavioral science model. We can use it at the individual level to change our own behavior, but we can also use it at the organizational level, because these factors, they are driving us individually and collectively. So your work culture is being driven by these factors, yet they're broadly invisible to us. And because they're invisible, we're not able to manage them. And they are responsible for every behavior that we display. all the unhelpful behaviors and unhelpful habits, but also the helpful habits and the helpful behaviors. And if we think of the context of the world we're living in, 58 million people, adults in America, have mental health diagnosis. 2.5 million people in the UK are signed off on the sick. 1.5 million of those people, which is a record, 1.5 million of those people have anxiety and depression as either the primary reason for being signed up on the sick or the secondary reason. Our National Health Service in the UK is projecting that in 15 years' time there'll be an additional 39% of the workforce, working age people, who've got long-term illnesses, and anxiety and depression will be up there alongside cancer as one of the main sources of long-term, or one of the main long-term illnesses. That is telling us that the 9 action factors currently are driving an awful lot of unhelpful behaviors. This is so the fabric of our world, which is driven and mingled with these factors, is making it really easy for us to practice lots of unhelpful things.
Yeah, it's depressing. It's a depressing set of statistics that you cite, John, and it's a very compelling analysis of the state of our lives, and I'm sure a lot of people will be paying attention. You also explain in the chapter, in the Habit Mechanic, chapter 18, that all of these 9 action factors are interconnected. I'm going to list them in the order that they appear in the book, if that's okay. And then I'd like to ask you about each of them and how we can learn to switch them on and use them for our own benefit then to start this helpful behavior change. First one is the habit mechanic mindset. The second one is brain state optimization. The third one is tiny changes factor. The fourth is the personal motivation factor. The fifth is the personal knowledge and skills factor, followed by, in 6th place, community knowledge and skills factor. Then 7, social influence. 8 is rewards and penalties. And finally, 9, the 9th factor, is external triggers. So I just thought it was useful to list those as they appear in chapter 18, John. As you state clearly in the book, they're interconnected. So how can we start then to use these for our own benefit, to switch them on, as you put it?
Yeah, and just for clarity, there isn't a hierarchical order here, so they're not placed in terms of importance. They are. This is just a list. In any given situation, some can be more important than others, but yeah, so they're all working together. So shall I go into each, Andrew? Sorry, and give a bit more detail about?
Yeah, that was great. Yes, and then thanks for pointing out that. Yeah, if I gave the impression there was some sort of order of priority, I apologize. Yeah, I just wanted to list them in the book, but that's a brilliant additional bit of insight there, John. So many thanks for that. Yeah. If we can, let's start with the first one listed in the book, habit mechanic mindset factor.
Yeah, so this actually connects with, we talk about willpower. So this is chapter 18 in the book, and we've done an awful lot of groundwork to this point in the book, because we know that if we want to help people to make change, we've got to help them to understand how their brain works. We've got to help them to not just understand the science, but understand how they can conceptualize that and connect it to their day-to-day, their daily lives. We've been conditioned to believe an awful lot of things about ourselves that are not true. The fundamental one being that we're pretty fixed, and that after a certain age, our abilities to learn new things are very limited. We know that that is not true, and we've done that groundwork so far in the book to get to chapter 18. We've learned about the power of willpower, our prefrontal cortex, but we over rely on willpower, and we've learned that willpower is a limited resource. And this speaks to the priming that we've done in the book so far speaks to factor number 1, the habit mechanic mindset factor. This belief and understanding that we can change and we can learn. And Carol Dweck, which is where we're drawing insights from here, from a behavioral science perspective. Carol Dweck has done extensive work over the last over 60 years now, looking at mindset. She talks about growth mindset and fixed mindset, and this understanding that if people don't believe they can change and grow and learn and do things differently, well, they won't be able to. So that's a lot of the work that we've done. So if we want to change, if we want to help others to change, it's important that we actually help them to understand how their brain works and that they do have the ability to do things differently. We use the P2 continuum. So people believe that they can either do something or not, and we say, well, think about it in this way instead. It's the poor to perfect continuum. You can be either perfect at being confident, for example, or you can have no confidence whatsoever. You're probably somewhere on that continuum, and wherever you're at, you can move a step closer to the perfect end. You're never going to be perfect, but it's a continuum, and we often think of ourselves as black and white. So that's the first factor, and that's where really actively doing that in our work all of the time by helping people to understand how their brain works, starting with the lighthouse brain model and moving onwards.
Yeah, fantastic. And just before we move on, a brief digression from me, if that's okay. I mean, I've heard a lot of people talking about Carol Dweck's book and the phrase growth mindset and kind of citing it. And just the fact that that's only one of 9 factors. And really, as far as I'm aware, the book just highlights the existence of growth mindset or fixed mindset, shows the profound nature of the habit mechanic book, because it tells you that and so much more besides. So it really is, I think it's worth putting in perspective. There are a number of texts around people sort of cite, but or just think about that in the compare what the habit mechanic can do compared to that text, and it's a massive, profound difference. So it's well worth bearing in mind. So yeah, that's the first factor then, or factor number 1.
Can I just interject there, Andrew? So, because someone just told me that someone they know, who's studying a master's in nutrition at King's College London, told them, oh yeah, the lecturer recommended the habit mechanic in our lecture this week.
Well, fantastic.
So it's getting into the mainstream. Yeah,
the message is getting out there, which is great. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. That's good to hear, and quite right besides. So fantastic. So the next factor we're going to talk about then, John, is brain state optimization.
Yeah, so this also brings us back to the willpower piece. If our brain isn't working well, that means our prefrontal cortex, where our willpower lives, is going to be out of action. So the better we can get our brain working, the more willpower, we want to think of it in those terms, we're going to have. Even though it's still a limited resource, it will be less limited. So yeah, and it's probably helpful. So we use the driving a car example to unpack these factors in this chapter. So I'm going to use that example. So if you want to learning to drive is a complex behavior, as are things like managing stress better, building better stress management habits, building better sleep habits, better leadership habits, better productivity habits. They're all complex behaviors. They're difficult to do. Simple behaviors like eating more donuts, checking your phone more often, watching more Netflix, you don't have to worry too much about the 9 action factors because they're already heavily stacked on your side. When we want to do complex things to help us to be healthier, happy, and at our best more often, we need the 9 action factors working for us. So when we're learning to drive, if we go back to the first factor, the habit mechanic mindset factor, if you don't believe you can drive, well, you'll never be able to do it. The second factor, brain optimization, if you try to learn to drive when you're sleep deprived, for example, it's not going to be a great use of your time. You're not going to be able to learn very quickly, if at all. So just pointing towards, if we want to learn something new, we need to get our brain working well so that we've got that conscious bit, that willpower bit working. And this is why, in fact, in the next chapter in the book, we go deep into how do we build better sleep, diet, exercise habits. We know that first part of the happiness equation is getting your brain working really well. So this keeps coming back. because if our brain isn't working well, we're not going to be able to do anything else well. Employers ask their employees all the time, what are we doing for you? How well are we serving you? But unfortunately, it doesn't matter what businesses do for their employees. If employees' brains are not working well, nothing good can happen. And all the data is showing us that it's harder and harder to get our brains working well. And that's why we start every day with asking ourselves that question: how well did I do my best to be at my best? We have the fantastically powerful Des Swap tool, which is in the app, also in the book, where we can quickly analyze and improve our sleep, our diet, our exercise. So yeah, it's about brain function. If brains are not working well, we're not going to make any positive changes.
Okay. Yeah, fantastic. And I think the driving analogy is a useful one. So I'm sure you may wish to keep using it. The next factor then is the tiny change factor. It's the size or the scale of the change we want to make.
Yeah, so this is drawing on BJ Fogg's work, who again has written an entire book about this, but for me, it only explains a little bit about why people do what they do. We know that human brains are designed to save energy. So the easier we can make something to do, the more likely it is we'll be able to compel our brain, the limbic regions of our brain, to do it. We have this baked into our approach, the tiny empowering action, the daily T plan. We talk about making small, specific aims. We move from, in the FAM story, which we covered a few chapters ago, we move from big, ambitious goals in the distant future all the way back to the tiny little things that we need to do today. When we're learning to drive, we get this. In the first lesson, we don't even drive anywhere. Typically, we just learn where things are in the car. But when it comes to changing our own behavior, in relation to our sort of health and our happiness, let's say trying to lose weight, for example, if we can't lose weight after the first week, we give up and we beat ourselves up. We talked in a recent podcast for the UK Cancer 100 press up challenge. Just start with one press up, then maybe do them in clusters of 5 to start with. But it's all about making it easy for your brain. So people typically set goals and they have change ambitions which are too big, and therefore they don't achieve them, and they fail fast, and they beat themselves up, and they give up, and you quickly start to create a narrative that you can't change. But often it's because the thing you're trying to change is too big. We can change. Neurobiologically, it's baked into us.
Yeah, the thought occurs to me, just again dwelling on the learning to drive example. It's like probably having your first lesson being shown where the clutch is, and then saying, well, you're on the grid in the Monaco Grand Prix next Saturday. So yeah, I can see what you're saying there, John. It's very, very powerful insight, but simple. So fantastic. The next factor then we're going to discuss is personal motivation, the personal motivation factor.
Yeah, so if we just purely focus on the driving example, if you've learned to drive, there was a reason why. I had to get the kids to school, I had to get to work, I wanted to be the first person in my peer group to do it. So any small behavior we want to change today, when I say behavior is the simplest unit we can think of in terms of what we think and do. We package behaviors into habits because we understand how habits work, and that when we think of habits, they're more malleable and a bit easier to manage. But whatever new behaviors or habits we want to build, if we can connect them with bigger, meaningful goals, that's going to be really helpful. So we've got the FAM story tool that we use to help people to do that, and that's why we do it, to help them to activate their personal motivation. Our brain is really interested in the next 10 minutes, that's all. So it can, even though we have good intentions to do something differently, like write a written reflection at the end of today, if we don't connect that simple behavior with bigger, meaningful reasons, it's easier to let it slip and just to carry on doing what we always did, and therefore not establish a new behavior. So personal motivation is key. And as I'm starting to, all these factors so far, I've shown how in our approach we activate it. And this is what our approach is built around these 9 factors to make change easier, which is why we get such good results.
Yeah, fantastic. The next one then, personal knowledge and skills. Another personal factor, personal knowledge and skills. Talk to us about that, please, Jon.
Yeah, so the knowledge and the skills, and in some ways that's why we have driving lessons, because we might be highly motivated to want to learn how to drive, but we need some new knowledge and skills. Knowledge and skills are easier to access than ever before about certain things. And I use that weight loss example before. I find it really interesting. Our program is not a weight loss program in a pure sense, but it's a behavior change program. And this, in the last few months, I've seen people online that are either clients of ours or we're working with, and I've been taken aback by they've made a physical change. They've lost a lot of weight that's noticeable deliberately, and they tell me, "Yeah, I've just been using the habit mechanic approach." It's not a weight loss program, is it? But it works for any change you want to make because it gets all these factors working for you. So it's easy to go online and work out what do you need to do to eat to lose some weight, but actually it's much harder to practice doing those things. But the habit mechanic book has all the knowledge and skills in it to build the habits that are going to allow you to be healthy, happy, and at your best more often. And we do cover diet in there as well, and exercise, which are the core variables for losing weight. So yeah, we've got that in it. We've got the tried and tested ways of explaining this is how stress works. This is how you counter stress. So we've got I think there's over 35 tools in the book, which are showing you not just what you need to do, but actually how you can do it as well. So knowledge and skills, absolutely key for things like, back again, like managing stress, being a better leader. These are sometimes quite intangible about what do I actually do, and we go right into the roots of how to do that in the book.
Yeah. Okay.
And the app as well. You can work with the coaches in the app.
Yeah, of course. Yes, that is a fantastic interactive experience when you do that. I can say that myself. The next factor is also related to knowledge and skills, but knowledge and skills we might learn from other people. You call it community knowledge and skills.
Yeah. So if we take the driving example, if your parents know how to drive and you're learning how to drive, that's really helpful because I can give you a free lesson at the weekend, for example. And that's why we very deliberately created a language in our program so people can share it with each other. Accountants have a language, doctors have a language, your solicitor has a language. Complex fields have languages very deliberately. This is a complex field, so we've over the last 20 years created a very simple language to explain it. So that's why we have terms like the daily T plan and the 8 brain and horribly unhelpful emotions and the 9 action factor model, so that we can take quite very complex things and make them simple to understand and share them with each other. And we see that every day in the Habit Mechanic University app, people sharing this language with each other and supporting each other so that they can make positive change.
Okay. Moving away from knowledge and skills, personal and community, then the 7th factor, again, reminding people not listed in any priority order or any hierarchy, just there are 9 factors, and we're dealing with them in the order they appear in the Habit Mechanic book in chapter 18, which is a chapter we're taking a deep dive into currently. Factor number 7, social influence.
Yeah, so social influence can be a twofold thing, but let's just give an example. So if I want to learn to be a great driver, but my father doesn't believe the speed limit is valid, that he won't be a great role model for me. if my mother doesn't believe in car insurance, she won't be a great role model for me, because teamwork is so central to the has been so central to the survival of Homo sapiens. We know that social status, being seen positively in the eyes of important people in our life, is really important for us. It's hardwired into our brains. That's what the P and A is all about. And actually, if you go into the chapter, you see that I connect each of these factors back to the ape brain and those limbic regions of our brain. So we model and copy what people around us do. That can be what they physically do, what we see them doing. It's good to point out here is that there's obviously some crossover here between the social influence factor and the community knowledge and skills factor, and that there's crossover between lots of these different factors, but equally they've got something to say, just as a standalone idea as well, which is why we pull them out and separate them. So yeah, that's social influence. We've seen the rise of social media over the last 10 years. The reason it's got so big so quickly is because of that social status factor. It allows people to show how great their life is, for example. So yeah, that's the social influence factor.
Okay, thanks, John. We'll move on then to the rewards and penalties factor.
Yeah, so if we take the driving example, we don't think of it like this, but you get rewarded for driving well. Get your license first of all. And if you continue to drive well, you get to keep your license and your car insurance goes down. Equally, we get penalized if we don't drive well. So we might not get our license in the first instance, or if we do and we drive poorly, we'll get speeding points on our license, and then we'll get monetary fines, and then we'll get our car insurance will go up, and eventually we'll lose our license. So we've got reward and penalty systems. They're surrounding us and they're driving our behavior all the time. It's just that we're not really aware of them. The reward and penalty systems can be quite complex. We go quite deep in chapter 18 about the structure. We separate them in intrinsic, extrinsic, social. So yeah, they are there all the time, but if we understand them, we can design them and get them working for us instead of against us.
Okay, the final factor of the 9 then is external triggers. We'll talk about that. I'd like to talk about that actually in greater depth as well, but first of all, if we can just deal with it as we have with the other 9, the final one, external triggers.
Yeah, so if we go to the driving example, you are being triggered and reminded what to do all the time, because governments have learned when they remove those triggers, car accident rates go through the roof, because driving is mainly not just an automatic, semi-automatic process like everything that we do. Many people are scarily familiar with the idea of driving along and then snapping out of a daydream and realize that they haven't really been conscious for the last 5-10 minutes or so on the road. But the examples are, if you don't put your seatbelt on now in a modern car, you get a ping ping ping. For younger listeners, seatbelts, even when I was first time, weren't even necessary to wear, and they became a legal requirement, and now they're triggered to put on. We have speedometers in our cars reminding us how quickly we're driving. There is literally a line in the middle of the road designed to remind you which side to drive on. There are police cars and speed cameras and zebra crossings and signage everywhere reminding you what to do. So we run on triggers. Possibly the most powerful trigger ever designed is the smartphone. It's so widespread because it's so good at reminding you to use it. It sits in your pocket. People even get fake triggers that it's buzzed when they associate a little muscle spasm in their leg with the ping of their phone. And the smartphone is a great example of a few of these factors intertwined. It's a trigger, but it's a reward and penalty system. There's a big social influence thing on there. You don't really need any knowledge and skills to learn how to use it. It's just super intuitive. So yeah, that's external triggers. They're driving our behavior all the time, and as the digitalized world has been accelerated, they've become really good at getting us to do unhelpful things.
Yeah, thanks for that, John. Thanks for taking us, first of all, through the 9 action factors in that great detail, but in a very accessible way too. And that was super helpful. And of course, you can read more in the Habit Mechanic chapter 18. In the chapter, you talk in more detail about each of the factors, and very helpfully signpost people to other parts of the book where they can learn more about bringing them to bear and activating them. Just in chapter 18, you delve relatively deeper also into external triggers, which you've just talked to us about, and also the rewards and penalties factor, with some further background. Like to talk about rewards and penalties, but just on external triggers. Thanks for that, the insight you've just provided, and of course I'm sure people will recognize everything you say about smartphones, but also in the chapter you talk about hot triggers, and you relate your experience working for, shall we say, a large fast food conglomerate.
Yeah,
When
well,
you were a
yeah,
teenager, of course, I should add.
yeah. When I was a teenager, I worked at McDonald's, like Jeff Bezos. So um, many people used to work at McDonald's, um, and actually, I don't share this in the book, but I do remember some people, very forward-thinking people, would order McDonald's and have a taxi deliver it, which obviously the store manager was delighted about because it was kind of Uber before Uber, well, way before Uber. We're talking 20, for good 15 years before Uber. But
If only we'd realized. Anyway, yes.
yeah, but McDonald's have always been prolific advertisers, and the point I'm making in the book, and also we unpack this in the habit building part of the app as well, is that if I watch a McDonald's ad now, it acts as a hot trigger. So a hot trigger gives me something immediate that I can do, because I can actually go onto my phone and I can order a McDonald's and have it delivered, via Deliveroo or Uber or whoever, whichever delivery company that I use. Whereas when I was young, if I saw an ad for McDonald's on TV, I would have had to have physically got out of my house, walked into town. It was maybe a 20-minute walk away. So that wasn't such a hot trigger. So, some triggers are more powerful than others. The buzz of your phone in the pocket, it's a hot trigger because you pick it up and you can check your phone. McDonald's are actually quite good with their physical ads, because often you'll see ads saying McDonald's, this burger, nearest store, and they give you the directions. Um, but yeah, it's like COVID vaccination advertisement. The one that's right outside the COVID centre is going to be more effective than the one that's 5 miles away from the COVID vaccination centre. So yeah, all these factors, there's one thing understanding what they are, there's another thing really supercharging them and getting them working for you. The challenge we face is that the big corporates are very proactive in getting them working for their ends, and they are supercharging them, and that's having some really damaging consequences on human well-being, happiness and health. And that is a part of the reason why we're seeing such high levels of mental health problems, because people's brains are not working particularly well, and they are being conditioned to practice some really unhelpful stuff. Um, we see like the gambling industry, for example, doing some really, really, they're targeting people through using very powerful variable reward systems. But yeah, so these things are being used against you all the time. So if you want to change your own behavior, if you want to change your people's behavior, you've got to activate these factors. And we show, when we go into the Chief Habit Mechanics section of the book, we show you how to start using these at an organizational level, because they're driving your culture. And this is the challenge with hybrid work, is that we've got these when we used to go to the office every day, it was a lot easier to control these factors because there was just one culture thing going on. Now we're at home as well, we've got this separate culture, and sometimes it can be easy to control these factors in our own environment, but if we don't know what they are, it's going to be harder. So yeah, lots of things to unpack there.
Yeah, thanks for that, John. And yeah, that's particularly fascinating about hot triggers. And so thanks for taking us deeper into the external triggers factor there. The other factor that you explain at greater length in the Habit Mechanic chapter 18, of course, plenty on all of the factors, but this is one that there's a deeper, longer form dive into, if you like, is rewards and penalties. And there's a lot of information there, a lot of different insight. But one of the specifics you talk about is gamification. That interests me. Could you just talk to us about that, please? How does that function, as a reward and penalty factor?
Yeah, well, gamification as video games have risen is more understandable. You could say in some ways that all these factors connect back to gamification. But we see some very specific tactics being used. So we know that variable rewards are addictive for human brains. So if we go back to the sort of the first research in that area, is a guy called what are his initials? Skinner. I know him as Professor Skinner. But
is it BF Skinner? I think you've talked to him about him before. Yeah, BF Skinner. Yeah.
I don't know what his name was, but BF Skinner. He famously did research with pigeons, and he set up some experiments where pigeons were pecking at feeders. So when they hit the button on the feeder, a piece of food came out. So he set up some different conditions. One condition was when the pigeon hit the button, food came out every time. Second condition, when the pigeon hit the button, food came out randomly. Sometimes it came out, sometimes it didn't come out in no supposed pattern. The third condition was when the pigeon hit the button, no food came out. And what that research showed us was that the middle condition, the variable condition, became addictive. The pigeon would just keep pressing it and pressing it and pressing it. And that is the basis of a lot of the mechanics on your smartphone, on the technologies that we're using. They've got these variable reward systems. We can think about that as the ... where there's a message. When someone's replying to you with a message, that's kind of built into a variable reward system. This is why gambling is so addictive.
I was going to say, one thing immediately springs to my mind, and let's be quite clear. We have great sympathy for anyone who has any issues with it, but the turn of the fruit machine sounds very similar to that the example you cited there from BF Skinner.
Yeah, that's it. But so is a soccer game, so is a cricket match. We don't know what the outcome is. Sometimes people win, sometimes people lose, and this is why they're so fascinating for people, because we don't know what's going to happen. And all these popular games have this stuff baked into them accidentally, but that's why they took off. So yeah, we've got unpredictability, loss of a fear of loss. We talk about FOMO. We've got scarcity things being used all the time. So yeah, it's a fascinating area. But what we're trying to do is help Habit Mechanics bake this into their approach to changing their own behaviour. So lots of we have a list with people that we work with on a consultancy level. We have about 250 of these tactics that we can use to design what we call habit power processes. So that if you want your people to build better habits around intelligent self-watching and intelligent planning, so they can do an extra 20 to 80 hours of high impact work per month, then we use these factors to help you to design your culture so that you can actually get your people to do that. We've done that time and time again. So yeah, but in the book, obviously, we're limited in what we can do in the book. We try to activate those, and then in the app we can go a little bit further.
Yeah, of course, we can point people towards the Habit Mechanic University app, and if people haven't already read it, the Habit Mechanic, the Habit Mechanic book. Just briefly, John, very briefly, because it's of course really beyond the scope of what we're talking about here. How do you start then, as you say, to bake in the 9 action factors? Just give us a few sentences of an overview of how you would start to help people activate all these factors for their benefit.
Yeah, we create a habit building plan. And if you go to chapter 20 in the book, we show you how to create habit building plans. You can also work with the habit building plan coach in the app. So we've created a blueprint which automatically activates these 9 factors for you by getting you to answer very specific questions. And again, that is why our approach is different, because we help you to not just know what to do, but we prime you to be able to practice those things as well. And that's why we get such good results with our program, because we don't just focus on, there are other programs out there that do consider the neuroscience, but I don't know any other program out there that has the behavioral science like we do, such a sophisticated but simple and powerful blueprint.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic, and I'm sure many people will be benefiting in the future as well. As we conclude this session, John, just want to take you back to the start of chapter 18, because one of the early paragraphs is very strikingly titled for me, "Verbal persuasion doesn't work." In other words, which you say and you set out in chapter 18, you can't talk yourself out of your unhelpful habits. It's just not enough to do that. You need willpower, but that's limited. Just if you would give us an overview of that, because I think, given what we've just heard, that is so fascinating and important.
Yeah, you can't talk yourself out or into new habits. This is what we mean. That doesn't change our behavior. For most of the vast majority of human history, we haven't understood how brains worked. We didn't get that they are malleable, that they're changing. They're like plasticine. That's what the word neuroplasticity means. There's about 100 billion neurons in our brain. And most of what the brain is doing is automatic, semi-automatic. So if we want to change our behavior, we've got to rewire our brains. We've got to reprogram our brains. That's what the habit mechanic approach helps you to do. We think the easiest way to think about those wires is habits. So many people know that they want to stop beating themselves up, and they tell themselves, I should stop beating myself up, it's no good. But then when they make another mistake or they get some critical feedback, those loops in their brain just get activated again. But unfortunately, most of the systems in our lives, whether that's the teacher telling you off at school, or your coach encouraging you to do something different, or your therapist, or your psychiatrist, they all rely on verbal persuasion, and it doesn't work. And for me, that's part of why we've got 2.5 million people signed up on the sick. It's why in America there's 58 million people with mental health diagnoses, because the systems we've got to help people to do better don't work, because they're not designed to change behavior. I got taught on these systems. CBT is the same. Cognitive behavioral therapy was not designed to help you to change behavior. It's designed to get you to know what to do and give you some skills. That doesn't work. That's why I spent the last 20 years putting the habit mechanic approach together.
Yeah, fascinating. It's a very important realization when you read that it takes place, and it's a fascinating, profound insight. So thanks for diving deeper into it in this session, John. Well, thanks for your time today, John. Been absolutely fascinating to talk through chapter 18 of the Habit Mechanic. Anything you'd like to say in closing?
Yeah, I think it's exciting that we've got to chapter 18 now, because this is we can see all the component parts, and then as we go forwards, we start to focus in very specific areas. Next, sleep, diet and exercise, then into stress management, then into confidence. The habit mechanic is not a quick read. It's a manual. It's a toolkit for success, but it is an easy read. So I got told, someone said to me the other day, a guy who's a managing partner of an international law firm said very seriously to me, I want to be very candid with you, John. Your book is really easy to read. Most of the books I've read in this space are not. But it's something that we're not going to skim through once and go, oh, well, that was interesting. It's designed to be used. So I'm excited now that we've got to chapter 18 and we've really set the scene, and we've gone through the science, and now we can get really into the practical bits. Yeah, and as ever, remember, this is a journey that we're going on. You never know which habit you're going to unlock that is the next habit that changes your life. And that's why we say you're only ever one habit away.
Thanks for listening. Remember, if you want to get your business off to a great start in January, get in touch to discuss how our Habit Mechanic keynotes or workshops can equip your people with practical skills that help them build super habits in 5 minutes. Or if you want to earn $100,000 a year working part-time by launching your own coaching business, we guarantee to help you do that in just 13 hours. Get in touch with us today to learn more about becoming a certified habit mechanic coach who can transform people's lives and is recognized as a world leader in the field. For more details, contact us via the website. The link is in the podcast notes. Or if you want to feel better and do better every day, download the Habit Mechanic University app from your app store. Thanks again for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Habit Mechanic podcast. If you liked it, please subscribe and tell someone else about one of the ideas or insights that you found most interesting.